care about current affairs, it's on the OShow.
Welcome to the OShow, Canada's current affairs show with strong opinions, and I can't think of an OShow that I've wanted to do more than the one today with the scandal panel, because we are post-election and we waited a good 24 hours until the dust settled and we could figure out what the hell actually happened in the most significant election in Canadian history. And as you will remember, when we did the Friday before the election, I had a little mimosa because I just got out and voted. Oh, actually, it was when early voting was happening on Easter weekend. Well, gentlemen, of course, got to up that a little bit with some lovely champagne. What? Are you surprised, Mark?
No, it's awesome.
I am also celebrating the 25th anniversary of my company, Power Group, today as well. And the paper was nice enough to give me a nice little center spread next to the announcement about Mark Carney winning a minority in the country. So it has been a good day here in OShow Power Group land. But cheers.
Congratulations on both. Congratulations
Well,
on both the placement and on the 25th. That's a major, major accomplishment. Absolutely.
And the shout out by the Midas Touch podcast. Come on, let's not forget that.
Wasn't that bananas? Honestly, I've been listening to the Midas Touch in the US all through the last couple of years as they built their independent voice and network. And Ben and Brett and Jordy, the brothers, are just such good guys. And they've worked so hard to get out the information against, the major Fox News and Joe Rogans of the world. And for them to pick up the OShow to promote Bruce Fanjoy and our interview and the shutout. Yes, Mark, you caught that about to the interviewer as well.
Exactly, to the interviewing skills.
We are Maple Midas in this country in the OShow. We love the work they do for Canada and pro-democracy. To cheers all, to Carney, to Fanjoy, to the Midas Touch, and to every Liberal out there who ran, but also, more importantly, to me anyway, to everybody who decided to put country over party. Because that's what we saw. We saw a lot of people move their votes in order to make sure that we didn't let MAGA come to Canada. So cheers, and so much to get to here on the OShow Scandal Panel. I have to take a sip. One moment.
Go for you.
Gentlemen, I feel like I should send you a bottle. Okay. So now that we got all the happy talk aside, we know that the Conservatives are in this massive public fight. It's so delicious. And we also know that in Alberta, we have Premier Smith crying some very bitter blue tears. So we are going to talk about, is Alberta going to separate or is it just day after anger? What the hell is going on between Poilievre and Ford in Ontario? There's like a public fight going on, which is fascinating. And also some of the local races, some of the changes, the big upsets, huge differences can affect upcoming elections, guys. We've got so much to talk about. So Keith Leslie, as our veteran Queen's Park reporter, I'm going to go to you first. Also, of course, Mark Cripps here on the Scandal Panel. And Mark, I was trying to avoid all your posts because I knew if I saw what you were saying, then I'd know what you're going to say today. So I feel like I got to talk to Mark on the OShow. Okay, for all of you, subscribe. Thank you so much. Like, share, and give us good star ratings. And now let's go to the star of the show. Let's be honest, Keith Leslie. Keith, my friend, you've seen more elections than the rest of us. What the hell happened and is happening? And is Pierre Poilievre a cooked goose and gone by Friday? Tell us, my friend.
That I'm not so sure of. I do smell toast, but I'm not so sure if it's being burnt quite yet or what's going on there. I think what we saw, of course, and I was doing CH television on election night, and of course we were keeping a very close eye on Hamilton Centre. And for a while, the Conservatives were leading there, and a riding that Matthew Green, the New Democrat, had held for, I think, the previous 3 elections, running for his 4th re-election.
Yeah.
And he placed 3rd. The Liberals eventually took it, but then the Conservatives took Windsor. The Conservatives took London. I mean, Ontario was very good to the Conservatives. Mm-hmm. Quebec was very good to the Liberals by going to them instead of the Bloc. So that's how the Liberals were able to get so close to a majority government. But the NDP's collapse, I think, was just stunning. But the Conservatives as well, I mean, it's such an awkward and mixed bag for them. I mean, they got more seats. That they came really, really close. I think if it had gone another week, they could have even done a little bit better. I think the advanced polls were baked in for the Liberals when they were ahead a little bit. And I think that gap had narrowed by Election Day, which is why the Conservatives did so well and why it was so neck and neck, especially in the popular vote. I mean, wow, they've got to be proud about that. But of course, their leader loses a seat he's held for 20 years. And is that just because Someone seemed to
Sorry,
enjoy that.
for audio listeners, I had to pause and take a sip for Bruce Fanjoy beating Poilievre. Sorry.
Yeah, who saw that coming? Apparently, Bruce Fanjoy, he's been working it hard, and the numbers were apparently lining up for him. And my take, and this is just my take, is that the voters in that riding, it's an urban Ottawa riding, so it's already going to tend Liberal.
Right.
And he went out and brought donuts and coffee to the convoy. And I think the people in Ottawa haven't really forgotten that.
Yeah.
So as a local MP, that didn't fly well. Now, of course, he's got a real problem on his hands. Does he wants to see, clearly in his speech, we didn't quite get there. I'll take us to the, he's clearly planning to stay on as leader. I'm not so sure other Conservatives are planning to have him stay on as leader. And of course, they've got that, is it reform clause where the MPs themselves can toss the leader. They can vote to toss the leader and force a leadership convention. So some of them, certainly the candidates, Conservative candidates who also usually get a vote in these things after an election and a leadership review, they're not happy, a lot of them, about the fact that they were muzzled, that they know the policies were good. It was Poilievre seemed to be the problem. The party was polling way ahead of him. And these local candidates felt, first of all, they know their local media, many of them. Yeah. They've been dealing with them for years. They're being blocked and running from their local media. They felt stupid. Then they were told they were not allowed to participate in local debates. Right. What the heck? So I think all of this was self-inflicted wounds by think of the damage done by those, and the vote was that close. Mm-hmm. In parts of Canada, as I say, Ontario, very good to the Conservatives, not Toronto, but the rest. I mean, the cities, Hamilton, Ottawa, but it's fascinating to see how well the Tories did. And if they hadn't done the self-inflicted wounds, I say about, not letting the media on their plane, forcing people to run around the country trying to stay behind them, not allowing questions or for questions, all that, yanking the micro, all this stuff, challenging a female reporter about his crowd size, all this kind of nonsense stuff, I think is, and again, it seems what we hear from people, he pushed voters away. They didn't like the aggression. And even if they were really happy with the CPC policies and they were upset about 10 years of Liberal rule and they wanted the affordability issue addressed better than the Liberals did, for most, it came down to, clearly for the slight most, it came down to the best person to deal with Trump. So there was two leader ballot questions almost, right? It was Trump and the threat posed by him and the tariffs and the 51st state nonsense. Or is it affordability in 10 years of Liberal change? It's got to be changed. Is it really change? Because Carney wasn't in most voters' minds real change. He was certainly a new Liberal, but he wasn't as change surrounded by a lot of the same people. I've taken up too much time here. But it's fascinating. It was a fascinating election. I think the collapse of the NDP was predicted and still stunning. And I thought Jagmeet Singh gave the best speech of the night by far. A lot of class there in a very difficult situation.
Well, we can get into all three speeches because I, like an idiot, stayed up till 3 a.m. watching them all. But and I want to get to that. And you can take as much time as you want. It's the OShow. It's a conversation. We got no rules. We have no agenda. We have no map for the show. We just go, which is why I think people have so much fun with it. And we have so much fun doing it. But, there is breaking news just as I was coming on. I made you guys wait a minute or two just to check the latest headlines before we tape. We're taping at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. So who the hell knows what'll happen by 5 p.m. when we post. But as of now, Donald Trump says he got a call from Mark Carney and he's very, very nice and he's going to be at the White House within a week. And he really likes Mark Carney. They're going to do a great deal together. And wait for it. He said that the Conservative hates him, that he hated him, that of the two of them, the one that liked Trump better won, which I'm sure is going to make Conservatives' heads explode today. But who the hell knows what the hell that crazy man is rambling about anyway? Point is, somehow Mark Carney has got him charmed, and it seems to be what Mark Carney is good at. Because if you look at the accolades, Mark, coming in from across the world for Mark Carney, I follow all the world leaders, and boy, do they ever love him. I mean, there's always going to be some kind of a message, but a lot of these are personal. They know the guy. I think Canada's on a whole new trajectory. So let's hear your top line of the night. And as you know, we're going to dig into it. I think I used the expression with you guys before we went on air that we'd go the full Monty with this, whatever that means. We will take off every piece of clothing of this election that we need to get to the truth. See, there you go, Keith. You're having a toast with some water. All right. Okay, Mark, go for it, my friend.
Well, I think, for me, the idea that Trump's already reaching out to Carney is a testament to the fact that Canadians, and I've always said this, I've been through many elections as a former political staffer with the former Liberal government in Ontario. It was hard to lose in 2018. But you know what? I've always maintained that voters always get it right. And I think that's what we saw again this past Monday, was it? And anybody who's crying, tears about the Conservatives not winning and criticizing or trolling or throwing tantrums, do not respect Canadians, and people calling anybody who voted for Carney an idiot and all this stuff. I mean, come on, get over yourself. If you cannot respect the will of the people, then you don't respect democracy. And win or lose, right? We've all been on either side of this coin. You have to wake up the next day and say, you know what? It is what it is. I have to respect the voters of this country. Yep. They made this decision. So, to the Conservatives, look, the problem, the big problem, and this is why, a lot of people don't know this, but I bought a Conservative membership so I could vote in their leadership. Because I want a good, strong, progressive Conservative party in this country. I think they're a great alternative. And I didn't vote for Pierre. I signed up deliberately to not vote for him because I knew he was going to be a terrible leader for their party. Yeah. So Conservatives need to take stock of the fact that, number one, Pierre lost an election with a 20 to 30 point lead, and he lost his own riding. If he survives to live another day in terms of being the leader of that party, then they will lose again. I will tell you right now, there's no putting a new clothing on this guy. He is what he is. Yeah. And for a lot of Canadians, that just wasn't the guy that they trusted. They just found him a little bit put offish. So, Quebec, I will say this clearly, Quebec saved Canada on Monday night. Thank you to everyone in Quebec. I mean, thank you for being the voice of reason and for showing a concern for the future of this confederation by electing so many Liberals and making sure that Pierre did not get, the Conservatives did not win the election. But Ontario scares me. I think as we celebrate the Liberal victory, I'm very, very concerned about what we saw in Ontario. And watching Jamil Jivani go off on Doug Ford on Monday night, I thought was pathetic. Absolutely sore loser, pathetic. Blaming Doug Ford when you probably did better in Ontario than you've ever done in recent memory, and pointing the finger at Doug Ford as to why you didn't win the election was classless. And I mean, I'm not the big, you know me, I'm not a huge Doug Ford fan. But I mean, Doug's today, even saying, or I saw a comment from yesterday, they didn't help me when the recent provincial election, they weren't out there supporting me, but all of a sudden they expect us to bend a knee. And there's always this relationship between federal and provincial parties. The federal parties always think that they're somehow better. Yeah. And that you should just do whatever they tell you. But when it comes to a two-way reciprocal relationship, they're never there. And I say this for both Liberals and Conservatives because I've seen this. When we ran in 2018, there was not a federal Liberal to be found helping out the provincial Liberals. So, this is just the way it goes. But I mean, at the end of the day, I feel a great sense of relief because, for me, it came down to this. I really put it in very basic terms, a job interview for a very important job as the CEO of a company. You have two resumes. One is from Pierre Poilievre and one is from Mark Carney. And if you cannot see through the fact that Mark Carney was in the best position to lead Canada at this time, then you are simply nothing more than a partisan. And that, I think, for a lot of us, I look at the NDP voters who gave up their vote to Liberals, who put country, I think you mentioned that early, who put country before party. Right. And I respect that. I wish more Conservatives would think that way, but they have become a cult. And what concerns me is that the amount of votes that the Conservatives got makes me worried that there are many people in this country who are on board with the MAGA philosophy, who think that the MAGA thing should come to Canada. And, and I even thought when Giovanni was going off, I was like, did you promise JD Vance, your good buddy, that you guys are going to win and hand over the country to them? Why are you so bitter, dude? So that was
when I saw that was, I don't know, the guy, at all, but I know he's buddies with JD Vance, and the amount of like rage and just pissiness and the way that he was, I was watching it live going, what the? So you had to feel like there were some promises made by some of the Poilievre camp to some of the MAGA camp. I mean, we saw Danielle Smith and O'Leary fly down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring of the Mad King. We all saw that photo, which will haunt them in infamy, I think. Pissed me off, it still does. But the fact is, like, when someone's that cocky and confident, when you've got a 26-point lead for months, and everybody, not me ever on the air, but everybody else was like, oh, it's inevitable, Poilievre's the next prime minister with a majority. You got to know there's deals being made, there's promises being made, there's lobbying and shit going on. That all blew up. And I felt watching him, I'm watching him going, oh my God, the phone calls are like, I would not want to be on the receiving end of some of the phone calls coming into the Poilievre inner circle. And we've seen this silence from some of them since the election. And I've put out there, you know, a la Depeche Mode, enjoy the silence, folks. Not hearing Poilievre for a full 15 hours is a treat to my ears.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to know that there are some serious conversations taking place. And this public spat that Giovanni set off with Ford, I mean, Ford did my favorite thing is when a politician goes, well, I'm not going to worry about that, but blah, 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 gets their dinner. You know, it's like, but anyway, no, and I'm not going to talk about that. Next time they get it, you know. So the point is, you got the federal conservatives fighting with Ford, the most, you know, successful conservative premier by the numbers of voters anyway, probably in the province. You got Tim out there in your way, Nova Scotia. Is it Tim Houston?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like a fantastic conservative possible federal leader at some point as premier. I won't say much for Mo, but the point is you got these excellent big, and I don't like Ford's policies at all, we know, including him saying today that he wants to elect judges like in the US. Any politician, just like pro tip, any Canadian politician who says the words Ford said today of like they do it in the US, we should do it like the US, stop. Look at Trump's approval ratings. They're the lowest of any president on 100 days, okay? Nothing the U.S. is doing right now is anything we want to emulate, so just stop with that shit. Anyway, I don't like Ford, but he is obviously a premier who knows how to get the vote out, and we saw how many conservatives there are in this province, to your point, Mark, right? So for Giovanni to be, you know, doing a public fight with Ford doesn't help Poilievre's fortunes. I mean, I can see a lot of people going, oh, if they're going to play like this, like it's one thing during the campaign, like you said last time, Keith, that there was some rumors on the East Coast going around about what happened between Tim Houston, the premier, and Poilievre's campaign. It's one thing to do it behind the scenes-ish. It's quite another thing to do it on election night when you got 15 million Canadians watching and going, these guys are a mess. So, guys, I got to ask you, I know, Keith, you said you don't think Poilievre is necessarily gone. Mark, you didn't really get to that. Do you think that he is toast, like gone?
Because he's certainly got some.
Yeah,
he's certainly got some real trouble. He's certainly got some real trouble. You mentioned the Tim Houston thing. Well, Houston had a news conference today that was fantastic. He was asked about this supposed rift between, and Houston, oh, you mean that thing from the election? Yeah. There's some people upset about that, you know, from the movie Monitors. But he then said, Houston went on to say that Poilievre pushes people away.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. He said, there are many shades of blue, but Pierre Poilievre only sees the one. And he went on to say, he was asked, what kind of relationship do you have with Pierre Poilievre? He said, none. I have no relationship with that man. So there's a very successful conservative premier in Nova Scotia who was just elected, and that the province went pretty liberal, only one conservative federally. And then there's the Doug Ford stuff. And this is Jamil Giovanni. He has just minutes earlier won re-election. He was only elected in a by-election. He's just won re-election, and he's that angry and fed up and attacking Doug Ford and talking about, he accused Ford of sabotaging their campaign, and that the thugs surrounding Doug Ford prevented Giovanni from doing the miracle work he was doing as Ford's advisor. What kind of talk is that? I mean, and as Canadians are looking at this going, and this is how you're dealing with other conservatives. In fact, conservatives we quite like Doug Ford and Tim Houston. You're at war with these guys, and you had no relationship. You never reached out to them. And Ford, in an interview earlier this week, pointed out, he said, Poilievre has no relationship with any mayors either. Like, it's all about phoning and talking, and at least a congratulations. And Ford's line was great. He pointed out that Poilievre's people had been told, all the MPs had been told, do not go online and congratulate Doug Ford and the PCs for winning their third consecutive majority government. And Ford looked and was ironic, wasn't it?
Do you know what? Like I saw this Toronto Star op-ed headline. I didn't get a chance to read it. It's been a little busy. But it when it said, Pierre Poilievre's superpower, blah blah, and I'm like, peeve is a superpower? Like the ability to annoy and piss people off is a superpower. I mean, the Doug Ford thug comment, I might put that on a loop just for fun.
Oh, one more little thing from Houston.
like
My
it.
favorite. Houston insisted the dropping of his classic "I'm Nova Scotian" video on Tim was purely coincidence that it came at a time when Poilievre was having trouble, and then followed up. The reporter said, "Have you been taking French lessons?" And Houston looked at the camera and went, "Un peu."
Ah, that's a sign. So okay, so if we, I love that. So
And the Ford, of course, had said to Houston earlier, "You could have waited till the body was cold to drop the video."
these are conservatives. They're not
These
waiting.
are conservative. They didn't wait even for the results.
Did you see Poilievre's face on? Well, okay, let's talk about the speeches for a second. And don't worry, my friends in Alberta, I 100% promise you we're going to get to all that bullshit from Danielle Smith very soon. But the night of the speeches, right? Because you gotta watch. So I think that Jagmeet was everything that I always loved about him as a human being, and everything that I thought didn't make him an excellent politician. He's a heart on his sleeve. It's a lovely thing, but not quite the mind of the strategist that you need to be at that level. So I'm glad he's going with his family. I hope his family are safe. I hope they figure out a way to ensure his safety. And I'm so we're going to get guys into the gamesmanship about how does Carney create a majority, because I think there are some plays, and I've been talking to a couple of elected folks today. There's some moves that can be made. So we'll get to that in a moment. But just on the speeches, I thought that Jagmeet was, heartfelt, emotive. He's always been that guy. But yeah, it's good to go. Good to go. Make the right choice and go. I thought that Poilievre, it's got to be hard, right? But I can't imagine the phone calls that he was getting probably during the maritime numbers, because I was doing a radio show in Toronto there was a conservative guy on the panel, and it was like, ooh, the East Coast not looking like a red sweep, right? I'm sure he was getting some, man, we turned this thing around in the last 2 weeks. Change. Yeah, go Pierre. What? Hit Quebec, right? And then the phone calls would have changed. He looked like he'd been through 17 hours of hell by the time he got to that stage. And he tried to do a conciliatory note. The OShow producer who was watching it with me posted, that Pierre did say, accepted the election results and talked about a unified Canada. It could have gone worse. He could have pulled the Trump, but he didn't. So kudos to Poilievre. I'll give it when I see them. But his speech was kind of painful because it was really him just trying to sell to the base that he deserved to stay in Stornoway, right? Yeah. And then we had Carney come up, and if the gentleman behind him hadn't spent the whole time on his phone and sniffing the sign or whatever was going on, I would have paid more attention to Carney, because that was hilarious. But Carney was great. He was light on his feet. He was focused. He got the clips around the world the next morning that he needed to get. And frankly, I just want to settle the dispute right now. Mark Carney dances better than a dad dancer. He's better than Phil Dunphy. He could actually throw down on the beat, and I'm a dancer. So let's just quash that shit right now. Okay. Speeches, guys. Let me start with you, Mark. What'd you think of the three?
I guess Jagmeet's speech was great. He truly is a nice, genuinely nice person. Yeah. But I couldn't help but feel, and this is my own opinion, but I think the NDP are in big trouble in this country. I think this election really changed the dynamics of how we're going to vote, and I'm not sure that the NDP. I think they're going to be in the hinterland for quite a while if they survive at all. Which kind of leads me to, Pierre Poilievre. I keep trying to say his name right.
I have to interrupt you because I haven't told you this, because I try to be a nice person.
I know. I'm terrible.
But we have a drinking game, Shay knew, of every different way you say Pierre Poilievre's last name. We usually listen to the pod on Spotify in our to Canada. Every time you said Poilievre.
I know.
Yeah, last week you got a double shot because you actually did a hyphenated version of his last name.
I have listeners coming up to me in the street just pronouncing his name properly. Come on, man. Anyway,
hilarious. At first we thought you were doing it on purpose. It's like some sort of a partisan liberal dig.
I don't know.
It's hilarious.
There's a lot wrong with me, but the booing, I think that really, that tarnished the reaction. I mean, in every other camp, there was cheering for when the congratulations, you want to give a leader, you want to be congratulatory, and the booing from the Conservatives,
but again, shut that down.
Like really
He
poor
did.
sportsmanship. I think that was poor. Carney's speech was what I expected for someone who wins. But we haven't really. So here's why I think Pierre's in big trouble in terms of staying on as leader.
Yeah.
This government, whatever happens in the next week with the rumors and the potential floor crossings and alliances and whatever, this government, as it stands, will likely live for quite a while. Pierre does not have a seat in the House. It's quite, he potentially could be out of the House for almost a year before they convince somebody step aside, let him run. Carney calls a by-election. The way the House works, they're going to be on holidays, blah, blah, blah. It could be next spring before he even enters the House again.
But didn't they get some guy in Edmonton was going to offer up his seat? I thought, like, couldn't it be fast tracked?
Doesn't matter. No, the guy has to stay in power. From what I understand, you cannot give up your seat until 30 days after you've been elected. So you cannot give up your seat, or 60 days. I heard this. I read, or they were talking about this last night in the ad issue panel, I think, and they were mentioning that the cycle for him to actually get back in the House could be next year. He no longer has the stick that he's had. He's been carrying around a stick on all of his caucus, on everybody, the media, everybody. Now he's going to have to work with the friggin' with the Ottawa media to get any attention. Right? He's going to have to do those scrums outside where he's going to have to answer every question, where he's not going to have control. So he's going to be neutered as a leader. So I think to myself, yes, day after, 2 days after, many of his people are rallying around him saying, Scottish and others, saying, we want him to stay. We want him to stay. But conservatives have, we've talked about this before, like the long knives are out right away. And I think that if they reflect upon this election, and they think what could have been.
Yeah.
It will all the fingers will point back to the fact that he was the wrong leader for that party at a time when they should have easily won a majority government. But I just don't see how he survives, and that's I don't know.
But look, we haven't talked about the money yet, right? And as a business owner, I don't donate to political campaigns, but some people do, and they donate a lot, right? You're only allowed a certain amount, but if you own a business or you have spheres of influence, you can generate some cash coming in from a lot of different people. So big war chest, like the biggest ever, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone saying that Harper had the hugest war chest in 2016. And then he brought out the cultural snitch line. He went full MAGA, Brexit, right, Farage, guard, whatever the hell was going on. Harper tacked to the right. And there was too far in Canada. And then Sunny Ways popped up. So malgré the big war chest, it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter because at the end of the day, money can take you so far. Just like Elon Musk couldn't buy that judge election in Wisconsin or whatever with all of his millions. We're still not for sale as humans yet, not completely anyway. And so I think there's a lot of money people on the line on election night going, I run a business. You blew a 26-point lead that I fucking financed, Pierre Poilievre, and you think I'm going to let you prance around and get attention after that? My return on investment sucks. Therefore, I shall invest in some other brand, not yours. I mean, I think that's part of the conversation that must be going on, Keith.
Especially the party in power. Like, this is the thing. Everybody was thinking that these guys were going to be in power. Right. This is how political money works. Yeah. People go with who they think is going to be the winner. He lost. The Liberals are going to be in power likely for, I wouldn't be surprised if they go full term.
Honestly, I think Carney's going to probably get a 9-year run. He's got the chops.
Right. So the money now is going to go to the Liberals because people want to curry influence, right? They want to look like they're, we're with you, and they're going to want things. So that the money's going to dry up for the Conservatives as well. So I think that's an excellent point. Yeah.
Well, it's how you spend it too, right? Of course. And what do we know that the Conservatives did with that big war chest before the election? They spent $3 million demonizing Jagmeet Singh as sellout Singh because he wouldn't defeat the government immediately as the Conservatives wanted at the time. And they even during the campaign, if he'd done it then, he'd be opposition leader now. Well, that's not what people wanted to hear. It's not what people wanted to do. You're basically blowing $3 million to take the NDP out of the game. Now you've got a head-to-head race, which you lose.
Right.
You've actually got the closest head-to-head race I think we've ever seen nationally in Canada. The third parties, all of them, even the New Democrats, were just basically not players in this election.
Right.
So you've got the best head-to-head race you can have, and you blew it.
Yeah.
You didn't close the deal. And in January, it was yours. You were already literally measuring the drapes. It was time to move in. You were moving out of Stornoway and into Sussex. That's not going to happen. And I think there's a lot of conservatives and the conservative financiers, the people with the real money, that as you say, they donate to both parties. But when they see someone's going to form a government, they lay it on. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's not just equally spread around. It's we're going with these people because they're going to be government for the next 2 to maybe 4 years.
And I'm gonna say this flat out for the billionth time. If you're on X, you know that I've had to say this daily for like a month and a half. Don't work for the Liberal Party. Don't get paid by the Liberal Party. Don't get paid by any candidates. Don't work for any political parties. I have no party affiliations ever. I'm not partisan. I did all the things I did because I care about my country and I don't want to be a fucking American. So this is why I have done it. I don't have any big contracts lined up with the Liberal Party either. There is zero zip nothing as of this moment that has anything to do with me and the Liberal Party and money. So this is why I bring this up, because the money play, the idea of funding the guy or the girl that you think is going to get into power, for some business owners and some companies, there is money from that. There is going to be contracts or preference or whatever the hell happens in that kind of stuff, right? I don't know how Carney operates. I don't know who he's going to give whatever contracts to. I'm just saying that ain't the game that I'm playing. But there are a lot of people who do, who say, you know what, I'm picking my horse. And they pick Poilievre, and they're going to be pissed. And you know what? I got to ask you, Keith, I don't know, maybe as an intrepid retired reporter, you know this, but you talked about how they spend the money, $3 million on demonizing Singh. What about, like, did Corvette out of Kentucky pay for that fucking ad with Poilievre and his wife driving around the track?
I know.
Because that was shot like we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, kind of an ad.
Much higher level than the two guys on the golf course.
100%. So who paid for that? Unless Corvette had some kind of a deal with Poilievre and that was a co-pro or that was a cause mark or whatever. It looked like they wasted a ton of cash on some stupid shit. And if I'm with somebody who gave money to the Pierre Poilievre Conservative Party and I heard that he was pissing everybody off and he was being a dick to people and also spent my money on a dumb ad with him and his wife even says, my next career, I want to do this. Yeah, what is that? What is that?
That was out of touch, though. I found that really out of touch for somebody who's a man of the people to be running around an exclusive racetrack in a $300,000 car with
American car,
like running around. I really felt that. I don't know this campaign. I think the knives will be out for the people that ran this campaign very quickly. I think they'll all be gone. And I think that will also neuter Pierre's ability to reign, control over caucus. There's going to be a lot of people in caucus who are going to be, who were promised. And remember, all along this campaign, candidates are coming forward. He's recruiting people with the promises like, we're going to form the next government and you're going to be my minister of XYZ. Right now, he's got nothing to promise anybody, and he doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons because he got his ass kicked by Bruce Fanjoy, who worked. This is what I love about politics. I love a guy, because I've been following him for a couple years, and man, that guy worked so hard. And that's what, some people, they get parachuted in, like the guy in Hamilton Center gets parachuted in, doesn't even live in the riding and wins it, and probably did next to nothing in terms of campaigning or whatever, rode the Carney wave. But Bruce Fanjoy was out there, cold, rain, snow, sleet, ice storm, everything, knocking on doors, talking to people. You know how many people knocked on my door in this election? None. Zero. You know how many people knocked on my door in the provincial election? None. Zero. I ran in 2011, as you know, and one of the things I did was I knocked on any and every door I could, because I knew that the only way I could beat the incumbent was to talk to people, to have them see me and make a judgment on me. And a lot of that comes from, that personal interaction. Bruce Fanjoy, what a hero. I mean, in many ways, he is Captain Canada, because he worked hard as part of the resistance to this MAGA conservative movement, and he knocked off the kingpin.
And I gotta
Congratulations, Bruce.
I gotta give Bruce some love, and I have invited him back on the OShow, if he wants to come back to talk about it all. Listen, Bruce worked it. He was as he said on the OShow interview, and if you haven't seen it yet, get to know this guy because he was a business person, and he said he knew that history was calling Carleton, that there was a moment that Poilievre could be beaten, and maybe it was the convoy, maybe it was just seeing him neglecting people in his riding. But as a business person, he decided, you know what, I'm just going to put the hard work in. I'm just going to go door to door until I earn this. But then he caught the imagination of Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
On election night, there were as many people watching to see if Fanjoy beat Poilievre, I think, as there were to see what was happening in their local ridings. And the people I were watching it with were like, oh, he's not going to do it. And I'm like, I've sat on enough election desks. I said this at like 9:30. That point spread of 2,000 votes, if that continues with all the polls as they come in, the same spread, it's going to widen, right? And I wasn't surprised that he won. I went to bed before I found out, but I wasn't surprised. But he earned it. And now some of these fucking trolls are trying to say that, it was a rigged election in Carleton and that blah, 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 and casting aspersion. I swear to God, Mark,
Oh, come on.
You got off of X. I stay in it for the fight. I go to Blue Sky for like the actual conversations, but they're saying Fanjoy this. They're trying to float conspiracy theories about Fanjoy and Carleton. They want to vote. You know what? All of you fuck off.
Come on.
He was decent. He was hardworking. He put the time in, and he ran a pretty damn good, blitz at the end. And he got national and international media attention because he is a guy who captured and united Canadians behind our hard work and decency. Bruce Fanjoy should be in cabinet. He is a fantastic individual. And I'm so proud that we got to meet him here on the OShow. Keith?
Well, there is, one of the critiques of the riding is that it was subject to that long ballot protest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that hurt the Conservatives. Well, the last riding subject to that was, let me think, Toronto St. Paul's last June in the by-election. Same thing, I think, an even longer ballot. Yeah. And the Conservatives took the Toronto riding for the first time in decades. Right. So, the long ballot benefited them a year ago. And now all of a sudden it's an evil thing that, rigged it for Bruce. Nonsense. As you said, he worked it hard. They saw some vulnerabilities there. And look just where it is. It's an urban riding in Ottawa. Yeah. I know some, but it's look at the rest of the ridings around. It's just a sea of red last night or the night before. That's all there is to it. So he was holding on to that riding for as long as he did was actually quite an accomplishment as a Conservative.
Well, do you guys remember? Sorry, Keith, I just want to interrupt for a sec, but do you remember the convoy, how it felt for the people of Ottawa, how it felt for the rest of us?
Exactly.
We were powerless to help them. Well, these horns were going all night long and their kids couldn't sleep and people were losing their freaking minds and being treated like crap. And Poilievre's delivering coffee to these convoy people. Right?
Yeah, he picked the wrong time, and yet even the police seemed to be on the side of the protesters a good chunk of the time. I mean, it was not a good situation in Ottawa.
Terrible.
And rightly so. People are really still angry, especially the people in the core, but even all of Ottawa, because all of Ottawa was affected. Many people in that riding are going to work downtown. It's just, their city was occupied by seemingly, we're not going to relive that debate. We're into another election, but that was something I think absolutely hurt him in that riding.
Didn't the police endorse him at the last minute?
Yes.
The Ottawa police endorsed Pierre at the last minute. I thought, wow, they are really desperate. They're endorsing him, and we can do a whole show on how people with guns should not be endorsing any political parties. Yes. But that's a topic for another conversation. But
it's kind of not, because this morning I drove by a giant black and white Canadian flag with a blue stripe on it. And it's like, you know what? Seriously? Like, I wish Carney had gotten a majority so that we could stomp some of this MAGA shit out a little harder than we did. But, and I want to talk to you guys in a second about how he can get a majority, because I think he might be able to get one, notwithstanding the fact that he's 3 seats short. But my bigger point is, that sentiment, not all conservatives are MAGA, not all people who are conservative like Trump, but the people who do, that's some nasty stuff. And we don't want that in this country. And the US media is saying that we sent a strong message. Hands off Canada. Get the fuck away from us. We don't want this MAGA Trump shit in our country. I mean, the American media I'm listening to today are seeing us as sending a clear signal. I wish it had been stronger and clearer, but let's like police associations saying that you're going to, support a candidate. What the hell? Do your job.
Toronto Police Association put out a release saying they're going to hold Carney to account What does
know.
that mean?
Yeah.
I used to complain bitterly
Okay.
that Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen went after him would speak to the police associations and bar the media from the speeches, which they were rarely barred from a speech. But it turned out when I went to complain to the opposition leaders, they were making the same closed-door speeches to the police associations.
That's right.
The Liberals, the Conservatives, and the Democrats were all doing it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I don't think police associations should. Again, that's another whole show, but just to make that point, they should not be endorsing candidates at any. We don't want our police, just as we don't want elected judges, we don't want our police going down political paths knowingly. I know it's the police union, but we don't separate that when we see you in a uniform.
And I tweeted, forget about the separation of church and state. We can't even separate police from politicians.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so wrong. I just want to make one point going back to I didn't get to comment on the speech as much. I want to comment on the Carney speech just a little bit in the fact that he got Jon Stewart's attention with it because he was delivering basically, Stewart pointed out he's not really a politician. So it's kind of flat and dry, and things are kind of rough right now. And someone in the audience screams out, "And you're going to lead us forward." Right. And Carney sort of goes, "Well, okay. Don't get too excited here. We just won." And Stewart was just having a field day with that because
I haven't seen that. I have to.
Oh yeah, and he said, even though that's Canada telling you to get it, but it was so Carney was so dry, and this person, yeah, you're going to lead us, and he's like, "Well, yeah, okay."
My favorite was when someone said, "I love you," and he goes, "That was before. Now we're building."
Yeah. So I think his honest, genuine reactions like that, the fact he's not a political, he's not a politician. He is now. He's absolutely elected one, but his reactions are still that of a natural businessman.
Did you guys see Mark Critch? Did you see Mark Critch?
No.
And him at Tim Hortons? Everyone check that out. It's like a 4-minute little, this hour is 22 minutes sketch, but Mark Critch cracks up Carney over and over and over again. It is really, really funny. He does a good Trump impression too. It's really good. Check it out. But yeah, I agree with you. He's kind of stiff and kind of dorky, but also we trust him because he is. My favorite of all posts I think I saw after the election was when Carney was dancing and breaking it out, and someone said, "We elected a normal person." And it was like, oh, exactly. Like Poilievre couldn't even smile normally, couldn't look at people normally, couldn't eat an apple normally.
You got the feeling there was a buzzer going off when it was time to smile.
I know.
Because it didn't come across natural, and yet he's got a nice smile. Like nothing seemed natural with him. He seemed like everything was forced and planned, and we got a plan, and we're going to stick to this plan despite the criticism from within and without. We're going this way, and they clearly needed to be a little bit more flexible, and they just weren't. And his speech at the end of the night, it did sort of reinforce that same thing. He was trying very hard to be prime ministerial. He pushed down the booze when he was congratulating. No, tonight's the night for this. We got lots of time to oppose and debate.
I thought
that was very good.
I even said Poilievre had been that guy during the campaign, he probably wouldn't have pushed so many people away. He can't
hold that. He can't hold that for too long. His natural self shines through, and to a lot of people, it's just too aggressive.
So this is a terrible suggestion, Keith, because I know you're a professional reporter, and I used to be back in the day. But when you said Poilievre's got no stick, he's going to have to try to get a scrum together in Ottawa. After the way he has treated the Ottawa press corps, him and his team of thuggery, I think they should all just eat an apple while he's talking.
Well, there's only one question. Anytime
he
shows up, there's only one question. Are you resigning today? Yeah. That's the only question they're going to be asking him.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so let's pivot a little bit, my friends, to the situation on Alberta. Because if anyone handled the night poorly and the results poorly, it was Danielle Smith. I tweeted out that, man, Conservative tears in Alberta sure are bitter ones. I mean, she just looked so... I'm not commenting on her appearance. I'm commenting on the essence of bitterness and anger, and who knows what she promised to Mar-a-Lago or whatever the hell was going on. But this is what pissed me off. Two things I'm going to say about the Alberta thing, and then you guys go. One is, I grew up in Quebec, okay? We have been in a low-key unity crisis in this country my entire 53 years of my life. So we literally have a parliament. We have a party in our federal parliament whose whole mandate is to break up the country. So this idea that Alberta is going to get all like mouthy and suddenly we're all supposed to collapse in fear, fuck off, okay? Like we're kind of used to it. We're a big diverse country. This shit has been around for a long time, and the Bloc is a lot more popular, and their mandate is a lot stronger than any Alberta Wexity thing they got going on. So that's number one. Like I'm not afraid of you, Alberta separatists. And the second thing is that you come out with this, oh, well, unless my demands are met in 60 days or whatever. First of all, ultimatums didn't work for Trump with the whole tariffs with China thing. I don't think it's going to work any better for his acolyte, Danielle Smith. But coming out with this whole, you better do it our way or else we're going to leave thing, it's like, yeah, and then saying, oh, there's a citizens referendum or citizens can, you know what, Danielle, if you want to leave, just say it. Drop the ultimatum, stupid list. Stop saying that it's up to your constituents to have, a better access to a plebiscite, whatever. Just say, you know what? I want to become a 51st state. I want to take Canada that direction, and we're going to do a referendum. I would have more respect for that, having grown up in the years of René Lévesque, who knew what he wanted and said it, than this bullshit hiding behind some kind of referendum, new legislation. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but that's what I saw it as. It's like, if you want to go, then ask the question and go, or don't. But I don't think they have the votes. But that was my thing. Like, step up or shut up.
Well, I'll give you a little inside information from what I'm hearing from people I know is that don't be surprised if there's another election in Alberta this fall. So a lot of this stuff is positioning right now.
Yeah.
The polling for the UCP right now is showing them potentially getting even a bigger slice of the pie. So this is a warning for you people in Alberta that, their polling is showing they really want to neuter Nenshi before he gets any strength or builds any relationship with Carney or, before he starts being able to shine.
Kind of like Ford with Bonnie Crombie in Ontario, right?
And I think, part of that campaign will be this so-called referendum, whatever they want to try to do on, which they know will fail. It's just a populist thing. The people in Alberta do not want to separate from Canada. Some do, sure. There's lots of opportunities for them to leave the country if they want to. And then the other big issue that I think a lot of right-wing extreme separatist Albertans don't understand is that a lot of the land is crown land in Alberta. A lot of that land belongs to the rest of the country. A lot of it is indigenous land. Right. And then you are also potentially going to landlock yourself from any markets for your resources. And, let's all calm down for a second and give Carney a chance. Give him a chance. If he cannot, I genuinely believe that he will reach across. He will try to rebuild a relationship with Western Canada that, with all due respect, Liberals have fucked up for a long time. And I believe that he's the kind of guy that can. He's a friggin' Albertan, for crying out loud. He grew up in Alberta. Like, oh my God, you got a prime minister from Alberta. Holy, like, what more do you want? So I think a lot of this is posturing. Yes, she doesn't handle this very well. I mean, if you notice, they made an announcement today that they are reopening all of the rules. They are lowering all the threshold for political donations, for any kind of contributions to the party. They're breaking them all down. No matter what, tickets to hockey games, whatever, it all counts now under the new rules. So they are definitely opening up the bank for what I think is going to be an election sooner than you think. And remember, we just had an election in Alberta.
So before I move on to you, Keith, on this, but what about the Kenney factor? Because it feels to me like Jason Kenney's trying to get himself back in there. Like he seems.
This is the other thing. They're trying to get ahead of those threats. They are trying to get ahead of the lead because they usually do. The UCP do a leadership review under their constitution. They have to, and it always happens in the fall. So if they can get ahead of the leadership review, which would happen in the fall, they run an election. That kind of ends that sort of like the wolves at the door kind of scenario where we've seen in the past the UCP have jettisoned people very quickly who they don't agree with. And it's really easy to build momentum in the UCP. It's funny. It's an interesting animal, and I study it a lot because I do some work in Alberta. I do a lot of work in Alberta with the company I work for. So I get to see the inner machinations of the political system there, and I know that the UCP, man, they are cutthroat when it comes to their leaders.
Keith?
Well, I mean, if they were to force a referendum in Alberta, and from what I understand, I'm not at all an expert on this. My numbers may be a little off, but Smith is trying to lower the number needed to even hold the referendum from like 650,000 to 150 or 60, to make it much easier to actually hold it. But I think in the end, I'm confident that the results will be such that the rest of Canada will be able to have a sigh of relief. that I don't think that many Albertans really do want to switch or do want to become part of the 51st state. Or, on the other hand, my big concern here is, of course, Donald Trump. When he finally clicks into him that the one the one Canadian province that does want to become the 51st state, or at least their leader is talking about it openly, is the one with all the oil.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, because that's what they ask. I've seen Ford ask that by other business leaders in the state. Are you the one with the oil? That's really what they care about. Are you the one with the oil? So she is in a bit of a catbird seat in that sense, as far as having the Americans' attention. She's trying to play literally the Trump card. Excuse me, that pun was intentional. But it might actually work for her to some degree. But I think that's, to Mark's point, that's where Carney has to get out there, meet with her early, and say, look, we're going to work with Quebec. The polls in Quebec are showing pipelines are feasible.
Well, you saw Blanchet say he's going to support Carney.
Yeah, he's not going to defeat the government. And yet he wasn't in favor of pipelines, but the premier is. And says he recognizes that the people are. So I think that the whole push by Carney is one of his top priorities. If he follows through with this goal of making Canada an energy superpower, where are you going to start doing that? In Alberta.
Right.
Yes, lots of provinces want to generate, even Nova Scotia wants to get in on this, lots do, but where you're really going to make the difference there is Alberta. So he's got something to work with to offer her. The provinces all do seem to be in a really, really flexible mood as far as their interprovincial barriers. If we can get something here, like, he's got a lot to work with. Carney, he's got a lot of goodwill. He's got conservative premiers that are just as happy as, if not even happier, that Carney and the Liberals won than the Conservatives. So he's got some opportunities here. And for her to come out, it does seem petulant at best. I mean, you could have just waited a couple of days and see what he's got to say, phone the guy, and come out. And the other, like Houston said, he talked to me about this.
Unless you're getting phone calls from Mar-a-Lago going, what?
Right? Yeah, exactly. And see, that's the thing. Carney is going to meet him at the White House. He's not going to Mar-a-Lago. And thank God for that. But that's what we need. We need, business to business meetings. We don't need someone going down and kowtowing to, bending the knee, as it were. It's just, it's horrible. And yet, are you the one with the gas?
You know what? If she came from radio, shock jock or whatever, I don't know her career. If she wants to work for Fox, go be whatever. I said in the house earlier, I said Alberta wants to separate, and one of my teenagers said, "No, Mom, Danielle Smith wants to separate. That's not Alberta." And I'm like, good point for Alberta viewers on the OShow. There are many, many people in Alberta who, elected Nancy, who are not into separation. And I think that, yes, Alberta has oil, but didn't Trump say we don't need their oil? I mean, we got the Ring of Fire of precious minerals in Ontario. We got hydroelectricity in Quebec. We got potash on the prairies. I mean, there are other things that the U.S. needs from us. It's not just an oil game anymore in this country. And when we hear Carney talk about being an energy superpower, I don't take him to say that we're just a petrol power.
No.
I'm saying we're bigger than that. So listen, Mark Carney got the job, got the gig. I voted for him because of his housing pledge and because he's a crisis manager expert and we're in a crisis. So now, guys, as we wrap up, I don't know how long this has been going. I haven't been paying attention. I'm enjoying champagne in your company. But let's just wrap it up on the sheer political gamesmanship, because that's been the parlor game I've been doing on my DMs all day with politicians and the like. Okay, so Mark Carney is exquisite at relationship building. This we know. He has the opportunity. Ironically, those few NDP MPs who don't have party status are now more powerful than the NDP has ever been.
Right.
Because they potentially could cross the floor and join the Liberal caucus and give Carney a majority. They could negotiate the extension of the pharmacare or dental care or whatever else. I mean, this is a moment where if they're clever, they will realize there will be no NDP majority for the next decade. They have an opportunity to be in the seats of power and get real policy through. So whether Carney brings them across, whether we have a Belinda Stronach moment or whether or not he makes some deals with them, or whether he gives Elizabeth May, whose party is now down to her alone, says, come on over to cabinet. You got she's certainly got a lot of wisdom. She's a brilliant woman. I don't know, guys. I mean, there are ways he can bring over dippers. There are ways he can bring over the Green. There are ways that he can just make them a kind of a deal like we saw between Singh and Trudeau. You prop me up for X amount of time and I'll work on these policies. Or he could just say, you don't have funding, you're not an official party status, but I'm going to make sure that you get what you need because I respect your voice in the parliament, and win them with some sugar. I don't know, guys. Let me start with you, Keith. What are your thoughts?
Or you could say you've got no power whatsoever. You can't afford an election. You know you can't afford an election. Do what I tell you to do. Like they may be in a position of, as you say, expanding pharmacare and expanding dental care, but the country isn't. We're going to have to spend so much money supporting the people displaced by the tariffs.
Yeah.
That expanding those programs is not going to be a Liberal priority for a while. I can't imagine it shouldn't be. We're
Right.
going to have to so much elsewhere.
Right.
So that that's the summation of it for me at this point.
You think he's got so much power he can just be like, you're not going to vote against me, you're going to vote for me, I don't need to give you a sweet deal. Mark,
I don't think he does, but I think he might, as you say, he can't lower the official party status down to 7. I mean, it's 12 in the Ontario legislature, was less than a third the size, for goodness sakes.
Right.
So he's got to keep it at least 12. He can offer them some sort of financing to get staff and research, but how do you do that? Where's the budget for that? It's got to come out of the Board of Internal Economy, which means all the other parties would get that. Well, they're not at the Board of Internal Economy because they're not an official party. So all of it becomes a bit problematic. It's up to Carney's largesse or whether he feels he needed. The Liberals may not feel they need to do anything to these New Democrats because they're not going anywhere. And Blanchette has said he's not going to defeat the government for at least a year. Yeah. So he doesn't need to really be sweet. And in that year, he may be able to coax one or two to come across the floor. So much can change in that time. And Carney himself, whenever they do get to, if the Liberals are going to have a by-election, if they want a by-election, they're going to have a member resign. Carney then has 6 months to call the by-election.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what they talk about Poilievre at this day being out of the House at least till the end of the year. So what's that do for his career? So I think that's a huge hit to him as well.
Yeah, I would say I agree with Keith. I think that the Liberals are in such a strong position right now that what we're hearing is a lot of intrigue and interest. And could we get a majority? But for all intents and purposes, Carney will start this new term of government as a majority government. The NDP aren't going anywhere. They have no resources now. There's no so yes. Are there opportunities for some? Remember, in some parts of Canada, the NDP are the Liberals, right? Like they're the same party. There's some Liberal brand is weak in some parts of like Alberta, for example, right? So there's only 2 parties there, So many people that are NDP, right, under like the previous Rachel Notley, leaned more to the center. They were pro-oil, pro-development, all that stuff. So there are opportunities for some of those people who've just been elected to say, you know what, my party is going to be in the wilderness for a long time. And here's an opportunity for me to do something, to be part of a movement, to build Canada, to do the stuff that Mark Carney wants to do. So yes, I agree. Maybe some will floor swap. There could even be some disgruntled conservatives who are like, if you guys don't get rid of this, if you don't get rid of Poilievre, then I'm done. Like I can't stay here, right? So I think Carney will lead. I think what you're going to see is Carney will tap into private capital like we've never seen before in this country. And this is why I'm hopeful for this investment in energy infrastructure, because I think he's so respected and that he will bring a vision together that will build this energy infrastructure he's going to lean heavily on private capital, which I'm really excited about because like Keith said, the taps need to be kind of turned down a bit on the old public expenditure dial and these new fancy programs. Like we are going to need to get our boots on and start working. And I think, by getting this private capital to think, man, Canada, energy superpower, I want to be part of that. Right.
Especially because they can't do anything in the U.S. I mean, it's not just working on Carney. It's where the U.S. is losing its credibility. It's losing its. How could you invest in the U.S.? You don't know if you're going to have a tariff on the next.
We are going to euchre them so badly on this. I'm serious. Like
that is the most Ontario thing I've ever heard.
I know. And my hope is that it starts right away. Like I think strike while the iron's hot. I hope Carney starts as quickly as possible on some of this stuff. Show momentum. Get the country behind him, because I think we've gone through many, many years of resistance to any kind of development of our resources. And, now's the time. You have the social contract now to do this. The people have spoken and they've said, you know what? Elbows up, shovels in the ground. Let's get her done.
And you know what? The Forbes guy said he's known Carney since he was a doctoral student at Oxford. And he said yesterday morning, this guy has managed to take all that nonsense about globalist WEF banker stuff and actually not make it political third rail. Because he's so competent and he's so well liked. I know, Mark, in the worst days of the last 100 days that it has been of Trump, 101 now, you were losing sleep. I was losing sleep. Our country was under threat. It still is. But I tell you, I have slept so good.
Yeah.
The last two nights.
Last night.
Because I'm like, I don't have to fix it or fight for it, or like he's waking up before I am and working harder than I am and doing more by 9 a.m. than I am. And I do a fair amount. And it's like, this guy's competent. Canada voted for competence. All the conspiracies and all the people who are freaking out and licking their wounds and threatening ultimatums and all this other shit. You know what? It wasn't that complicated. We had the choice between a competent person in the middle of an economic war who's like effectively an economic general. I know Chauvier compared him to Churchill. We got that guy. So it's not that complicated. You got a guy who's unlikable with a terrible resume and a guy who's super likable with a great resume in this moment in history when we need his resume. We voted for competence. And perhaps in a future show, we'll get more into it. But the fallout of this election was that it's changed a lot of things locally, right? Here in Hamilton, we had a big provincial star decide to run federally, get caught up by the red wave. That's Monique Taylor, right?
Placed third. She came third.
So did Green.
And then we got Matthew Green, who was pretty close to Jagmeet on the NDP federally, very popular in his riding. He came in third because of the red wave. Are these people going to run for mayor if Andrea retires? Is there what is going to happen? So I think in every city across the country, people are looking at it going, okay, so now what about these other figures and factors and these other elections coming up? This has changed, as Mark said earlier, the political landscape of Canada. And you know what? I'm feeling optimistic. I really am. I'm the most optimistic I've felt since, November 5th when Trump won. I truly, Ford eked out another win. He took advantage of the moment. But really, the real Captain Canadas here are Carney and Fanjoy. I hope that Ford and Canoe and the others all work together to support, and even Blanchet, everybody works together to support Mark Carney. Our number one concern is Donald Trump. It was before the election night. It still is. As a country, we still need to come together. We still need to be on high alert because it's getting more fascist by the day in the US, not less. And they are still looking at Canada with some greedy ass eyes, and I don't like it. So we have to keep the pedal to the metal, all gas, no brakes, to protect our democracy, to protect our sovereignty, elbows up. I'm just personally feeling like I can freaking sleep because Mark Carney is going to get this done for us as much as he can, as long as we all work together. Thank you, all of you who are part of the OShow pro-democracy community across this country. Alberta, I hope we did you right. I got a little angry there because it pisses me off. But, what's happening in Alberta matters to the OShow right across the country. In fact, Robin Madger, who does an amazing OShow theme song for us, updated it to Canada so that everyone's clear. This is not the Ontario show. It's a Canadian show. And I just want to say thank you for subscribing and liking. This is going to be a rough seas ahead, but at least we've got a captain with a firm hand on the tiller, and it makes me feel like, I can get some sleep. So Canada, enjoy your week, enjoy your weekend. Let's take the small wins where we have them. Mark Cripps and Keith Leslie, you guys are amazing. As I mentioned, I offered Bruce to come back on the show. Fanjoy, we'll have other great guests. We'll have the scandal panel back, because if I didn't, I think I would. I don't know. I would be afraid to open my phone in the morning if I didn't have you guys back on soon. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care, guys.
When you care about current affairs, it's on the OShow. And when you want to get clear what's going on here, it's on the OShow. If you like to stay in the know, tune yourself into the OShow. It's the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. And with a lot of great guests, she puts them to the test on the OShow. Yeah, there's no doubt they'll be calling them out on the OShow. You gotta stand for something or fall for it all. Canada, you hear the call of the OShow. It's a podcast, the OShow. Laura Babcock's the OShow. Stay informed with the OShow.
Your merch band.